Howdy guys, it's Joe here, today talking to you guys about the Season 5 placement matches and some tips you guys can use for these. Now of course Season 5 is coming out very soon, placement matches are coming out, so I wanted to get these out. But as a kind of disclaimer, the first two tips do apply to everything, really every season, and should be always helping you, while the last three really only apply to this season and the meta that we're in so far. So if the meta completely changes, the tips might have to completely change as well, but they all should be helping you. And if you don't want, generalized tips, you want just ones about the meta, maybe skip like halfway through the video. You should be fine from there. Anyways, with that said, let's just get started onto the first thing that I feel like can help you this season. And that thing is actually adding the best players on your team after every game, and essentially, added onto that, being nice to everybody every game so that they might actually add you back. Now, this is really nice, and it doesn't always work. Of course, the majority of games, people probably won't add you back. But even if 1 out of every 10 games somebody does add you back, well, you have a duo partner that you can play 2 to 3 games with and give you a higher chance of winning. Your chance of winning increases because A, they're a good player compared to an average player, B, you know that there's essentially a 0 to 10% chance of them trolling, other than the random player who has a much higher percent chance of trolling, and C, you might have a better team comp with this player, as if he's playing a character that you really like to play with, or that's really nice for your team comp, such as like Winston or Genji or anything like that, well, there you go, you have all those as benefits for yourself. I really say that this is one of the best things to do. Of course, it doesn't always work. Of course, a lot of times people won't add you, and if you aren't carrying, they won't always add you, especially. People really like to add people that are carrying. But if you do happen to get it even just once in a while, I'd say it's really worth the effort, as it doesn't take way too long to actually do. As far as the thing after that, I'm going to tell you guys, ask your team with vigor and the best you can, if you can play your best pick, if you can play your main. But if the role is already filled, don't try to steal it from your teammates. Now, I know that this sounds very vague and very plain, but it's just that simple. If you steal your character and if you steal a role from your teammates, they're gonna A, be pissed off at you, B, lose all their morale, and C, not really try this game and be a character that they're not really good at all, and probably have a slight chance of just going instantly into the troll mode. Those are never anything that you want. Now, of course, this doesn't happen all the time. Of course, you can, log into a game people have already picked in, and you say, yo, can I play this character? And some people will switch off their character and switch to someone else, and that's perfectly fine. You should be asking for that. But if nobody wants to switch, you should just take it for yourself and play the character that's left, or at least play the role that's left. Don't ruin your morale, as I feel like that can often do a lot worse for you than simply being able to pick the character that you're best at. Again, though, you should be trying to always play who you're best at, but don't steal it from other people. I'd really say that's never really worth it. A third thing, though, that I want to tell you guys, finally going to actually stuff about just this meta, is that right now you have to try to engage the best as you can as your team, and you need to engage together more than any other meta. Now, of course, this has always been a thing that you have to do. You have to go in with your team. It makes kind of sense. But as it is right now with this huge dive comp meta, you need to go in with your team, and if you don't, you're just gonna keep picking off and keep losing. And it's one thing that you have to keep in your mind, I'd say. One of the #1 things you have to keep in your mind and keep doing. Please keep telling your teammates to wait for everybody to respond before you go back in. If you have this really squishy dive comp meta and you keep going in 1 by 1 or even 5v6, you're gonna lose. You gotta wait. I know it's a little bit hard. I know it's really hard to make your teammates wait, but type it in, talk in voice chat, do whatever you can, and then go in. Just please make sure to try to do that in this meta, at least if you are playing a dive comp meta, which is really strong right now. Now, for another thing that I want you guys to try to do is, if you possibly can, if you have some friends that would mind doing this, try to duo queue as part of a meta comp so that it's easy for the rest of your teammates to actually make up the rest of the meta comp. Now, I feel like this is quite easy to understand. Let's say you do a queue as Far Mercy, well, then your teammates could probably queue in as Reinhardt, Roadhog, and then someone like a Zenyatta, and then like a Soldier 76, and make a pretty nice team comp from there. And even if they don't have that exact team comp, getting a nice Far Mercy, really good chain as the middle of your team comp, really your thing, just holding your team comp down, that can help you a lot. As well, probably the better example is Genji Winston or Tracer Winston. Getting a dive comp ready, then people will probably go Lucio, Genji, Tracer, Roadhog, or maybe just a third DPS like McCree or Soldier. That can also really help you, just getting your team comps ready from the get-go. And of course, finally, Torb Orisa or Symmetra Torb or any comp like that that's on defense that's a little bit more jank. Your teammates can probably follow in your footsteps, do a little bit more jank, and overall you're going to help yourself get a lot better meta comps. I feel like if you're solo queue, it's really hard for your teammates to actually join these comps, but if you're in duo queue and you have 2 of these characters already down, people are much more likely to pick up characters that'll work with those guys, and if you pretty much insta-lock into the characters you want to be playing, a lot of times people will follow in your footsteps a lot more, as it just kind of makes sense in their head, at least in my own experience. And as far as the final thing that I can tell you guys is to play a meta comp the best you possibly can. Try to get into that meta comp. Try to pick something that's very strong right now. But if it doesn't work, ask your teammates what they want to play, and ask your teammates what they want to switch up into, and if they're good at some other characters, and really just ask your teammates if you guys can swap, if anything can go on, as I'm going to say that it's more important to win the game than to play a meta comp. Now, of course, sometimes meta comps are always the best idea, but I've had many games where we're playing a comp that's very meta, but then someone decides, you know, we're losing this game, we're not going to win as it is, so they switch to Junkrat, or they switch to Torb, or they switch to something that we weren't really expecting, and they just carry from there. Now, of course, this doesn't always happen, but if you're already in the downward spiral of losing, it's often good to just try to switch it up and see what people can play, and see what type of jank people can pull out, and see what type of skills people can pull out that you weren't exactly waiting for, or that you weren't exactly ready for. I feel like that's a thing you want to keep in mind. You want to be completely flexible with your comps, and even though you might always want to try to get the strongest comp possible, if it's not working out, just realize that winning is more important than just playing characters that are really strong right now, as often characters that are strong aren't always the strongest in every single situation and every single way that your team will play the game. This game is very situational, so you got to keep that in mind when you are playing these matches. Anyways, though, guys, that's at least all I'm going to say. Of course, dive comps are really strong right now. Defensive comps are pretty strong right now. There's a lot of really strong comps right now that you should be trying to pick up. But, yeah, do whatever you possibly can. I feel like this especially applies to Season 5, though, as people are very into the meta right now. Much more than previous seasons, at least in my own opinion. So, we're going to kind of have to see from there. Anyways, with all that said, guys, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. If this would help you at all in the Season 5 placement matches, or I guess in just Season 5 in general, make sure to tell me down in the comment section down below. And if you have any of your own tips in order to help each other get out, or maybe win a few placement matches or anything like that, make sure to tell me, and we can see what's really going on here. Anyways, as always, guys, thank you all for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and as always, have a wonderful day.